Whitetails and Agronomy with Wes Steele from DIY Food Plot Pro. Wes has over 25 years experience in commercial ag production, food plots, a Bachelor of Science in Agronomy, and owns and operates a deer hunting outfitter business in western Kentucky. Follow along as Wes discusses proven food plot strategies, habitat enhancements, and how to manage the deer herd to produce higher quality bucks on your farm.
Welcome everybody to Whitetails and Agronomy, episode 11. I'm your host, Wes Steele. Today we're going to talk about some things that I saw on a corn plot trial on Facebook this week that I think is going to be really interesting for food plotters and land managers and landowners to be able to realize some of the things that we're looking for in a food plot corn and some of the things that really don't make any difference at all. So I think it's really going to be eye-opening when we break this down and I share some real examples of a lot of these things. I think it's really going to become clear for a lot of folks. A little bit of update on what we've been doing. I've been doing a lot of work bagging and shipping the seed. Thank you so much for the food plot orders that we've received so far. Really appreciate you supporting my small business. It really means a lot to me. So thank you so much for that. We are bad dry right here in western Kentucky, facing significant drought, significant heat, more heat building next week. So we are really in a tough spot right now, especially for fall food plots. Stuff like beast mode and overdrive, max bulb, brassica, and clovers really need to be planting those pretty soon, but we just don't have the weather to do it. So my seed is still in the bag right now. Obviously, I've got a lot of summer food plots out. They are holding up what I would consider decent. I'm thankful that the sunflowers have already made. A lot of the corn is nearly made. It's not quite made yet, but it's getting really close. The soybeans, the lab and cowpeas are definitely dealing with the brunt of this heat and drought because they are not made yet. And anytime that you get that drought pressure during that life cycle, especially when they're in the reproduction cycle, it's really devastating to yield. So that's something that we're dealing with here in western Kentucky, and I know a lot of folks are dealing with that all the way across the United States right now. So as I was scrolling through Facebook yesterday, I found something, a trial being conducted by a food plot company. Obviously very interesting to me. I click on it and I'm reading a lot of the comments, I'm reading through the trial that's been going on. Didn't really even know the trial was even going on, to be honest with you. Hadn't seen any attention on that up until that post. After reading a very short amount on the actual post, I was like, yep, knew that I needed to make a video on this because this was something that I saw was a major issue. A lot of the points that these folks were bragging about, or maybe not bragging, that's probably not the right word, but they were talking about were things that really didn't have a lot of interest to food plotters. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's episode. And we're also going to answer some listener submitted questions as well. But seeing that post really caused quite a bit of concern for me because I am very much one to, if you don't buy my products, I'm okay with that. But I want to educate food plotters as much as I possibly can. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on. But that's my goal on this channel, is to educate as many folks as what I possibly can, where they can make a better informed decision when they're buying food plot seed. Whether you buy food plot seed from me or someone else, fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, I want you to be able to make the best informed decision when it comes to buying food plot seed, and that's what I'm going to clear the air with today. So let's talk about the first thing that I saw on that post. As a farmer, if a salesman was to come to my farm and say, Wes, I've got a great corn for you, it gets 12 feet tall, my first thought would say, sir, please get off my farm. Why would you say that, Wes? Because the height of corn makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. Let me say that again for the folks in the back. Height of corn makes zero difference in yield. Okay, I have shelled 200 bushel an acre corn that was 6 feet tall, and I have shelled 200 bushel an acre corn that was taller than the combine. You couldn't see over it. They both made 200 bushel. I've also made 40 or 50 bushel corn that was 6 foot tall, and I've made 40 or 50 bushel corn that was still 12 feet tall. So the only reason that height would make any difference whatsoever to a food plotter is if they were going to use it for a screen, which I do not recommend at all for many reasons. One, corn isn't a great screen. In the summertime, it looks like a really good screen. You think, man, I planted 4, 5, 6 rows of this stuff. and I'm going to screen where I've got access to a stand location, it's going to be really good. But oftentimes, as that corn really starts to dry down, it loses a lot of its ability to screen. So you can see through there pretty well, especially as the deer eat it, gets knocked down, maybe some of it gets blown down. It's not a good screen, in my opinion. There's much better options out there than using corn as a screen. And then another reason that I don't like it is expensive. If you fertilize it, you lime it, you buy the quality seed, you buy good herbicides, you take care of it, you can have $400 an acre in a corn food plot. No question about it, per acre. So there are much cheaper options that we can have out there for much less fertility and much less money than corn for a screen. And the third thing is I don't want deer coming to my screen to eat, right? My screen is a spot to where I can access a stand location without being seen. If I have deer eating my screen, I can't access that stand location because I'm blowing deer out everywhere. So those are just the three reasons that I don't like using corn as a screen. I would much rather use something else. There's many other great products on the market that in my opinion fit much better as a screen than corn. So since we are not using corn as a screen, the height of the corn makes absolutely zero difference, right? So I could come out and say, hey man, my DIY 6539 is 12 feet tall. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference how tall it is. There is a very good reason why in my mega food plot trials that I have going on this year on my farm that you have never seen me talk about a corn being taller than the other. You need back in here? There is a really good reason why you don't see me out there with the tape measure or yardstick trying to see how tall this corn is in the mega food plot trials, because it makes no difference. It has absolutely nothing to do with how well that plot is going to produce for us, and it makes absolutely no difference. Now, on the flip side of this, it's awful fun to look at, right? I mean, we produce a gigantic crop, and it's fun to take pictures of, stand out there next to it and be like, good night, look at this right here, this stuff's crazy. You know, Egyptian wheat's the same way. You go out there next to it, and it's 12, 14 feet tall, and you're like, holy cow, look what I produced, you know. But from the food plot side of things, it doesn't help you at all or hurt you at all. It's just something that's really irrelevant. It doesn't. It's 100% not a selling point. So do not let anybody tell you that you should buy their food plot seed because their corn's 10 or 12 feet tall. It doesn't matter. The first thing I would do if somebody told me that, I would just walk away. So if I was looking at food plot seed and somebody said this stuff gets 10 feet tall, I'll be like, whoop. I'm turning around, walking off, because that doesn't make any difference, and it's not a selling point. This entire conversation really makes me think back of liquid lime, and many of you have been with me a long time on the channel. Others are new and maybe may not remember this, but a couple years ago I came out with the first liquid lime video that I'd ever produced. I'm sure others had, but it's the first one that I had ever produced. It really resonated well with a lot of food plotters because we could look at this and objectively say, this product is not working, or this product is working, or this doesn't make any difference. And so I remember when I started the YouTube channel and I saw all these liquid lime ads, and you click on the comments and everybody's like, can't wait to try this, can't wait to try this. This stuff really helped my soil. All this stuff that you know is not correct. And then when I made that video about it, and now when I see a liquid lime ad pop up on Facebook or social media, I still click the comments, but it really makes me smile when I see folks say, hey, what's the active ingredient? Is it calcium chloride or is it calcium carbonate? And it really makes me happy as an educator, because I'm not saying that I was the one that told them that, but I definitely told a lot of folks that. And a lot of folks were realizing that they were spending a lot of money on something that had nothing to do with changing the soil pH. So this is a very similar in that aspect of, I'm trying to teach folks today what things we should look for in these corn food plots and trials, and how we're picking our seed for next year, what things to look for and what things really don't make a darn bit of difference. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So the second thing that I saw of interest to me was number of ears per stalk. This is another selling point that would get a salesman booted off my farm. Just being 100% honest with you. If I had somebody come out to my farm and say, Wes, I got a corn for you, and it's going to make 5 ears per stalk, I'd be like, get off my farm, dude. I'm sorry, but get off my farm. Now, a lot of you may be kind of wondering, Wes, you were talking about tillering corn that's got 4 or 5 stalks that you're raising in the mega food plot trial. So I want to talk about that real quick, and then we're going to get back to the subject. That was a completely different problem that we were trying to fix with a tillering corn. So the problem with that was if you have a corn plant that has one ear, right, or one stalk. So the problem that I was trying to fix was if you have a plant of corn that's got one stalk and the whitetail eats it all the way down to the ground like they do in Western Kentucky and all over the U.S., the chances of that plant ever making a ear are slim to none. Now, not every once in a while, if they don't bite it down low enough, it will still make an ear. Most of the time, it's dead and it's not going to make an ear. So my train of thought on that was, if we have 5 or 6 plants, tillers, that are growing off this one corn plant, if the whitetails eat 3 of them, then we still have maybe 2 or 3 left that could possibly make an ear. So what I'm doing is completely different than saying I've got 4 or 5 ears on a stalk. I just wanted to kind of clear the air and make people aware of what I'm talking about when I say that, because to me that's very, very important. There's a major, major difference there in those two things. So most corn varieties are going to have 1 ear per stalk. If conditions are absolutely perfect, and I'm talking high fertility, cool weather, plenty of moisture, maybe you see a second ear starting to show up. Oftentimes it's much smaller, and that's something that only happens in the best of the best years. That's generally not something that happens every year. So this particular post was talking about how good it was that corn was making 4 to 5 ears per plant. And all I could really do was shake my head at that, because I'm thinking, if I was a food plotter and I'm not an ag guy and I'm not in an ag area, and I see an ad that says my corn will make 4 or 5 ears and this corn here makes 1 or 2 ears, what's everyone going to pick? They're going to pick the 5, right? Because 5's more than 1. So there's a no question about it that somebody who might not be as educated on how a corn plant grows or how this stuff works is going to say, wow, dude, that's impressive. It's got 5 ears on it. I should definitely get that corn. Here's the thing, and I'm going to try to say this as nicely as I possibly can, because I do not want to try to be mean to folks or trying to put others down. That's not the goal of the channel. But when I see a corn plant that has 4 or 5 ears per stalk, you screwed up planting it. That's just all it boils down to. That's the nicest way that I can put it, is you messed up planting it. You did not plant a thick enough population out there, and the corn plant has plenty of moisture, plenty of nutrients, and plenty of sunlight, and so it's throwing all kinds of ears out. That's not a good thing. And it's not a celebration. It's a crap, I screwed up is what it is. So you can ask any farmer in America. I mean, you can literally ask them, if I'll give you a field that's got this thing is full of 4 and 5 ears on it. Each stalk has 4 or 5 ears on it. Or I'll give you a field that's got 1 large ear per plant out there. I will guarantee you every single farmer that's ever raised any corn will pick the 1. 1 will always out yield the 4 and 5, because the 4 and 5 the population is way too thin. Okay, that's not a good thing. This is nothing new to farmers, as I remember one time being down in the river bottoms, and the river had flooded out, and it washed in corn stalks. Pretty common in the bottoms, when the current gets to rolling, it just moves all kinds of stuff around. And we had planted corn down there, got a real heavy rain, river came up, and it deposited just feet of stalks of last year's corn stalks onto this year's cornfield. And it pretty much killed every plant in there. But, there's 1 or 2 that for some reason was able to get enough sunlight or wasn't covered up, and they kind of go through. And as a farmer, you drive up to one of those plants and you're like, holy cow, that thing's got 7 or 8 ears on it, or how many? I mean, they'll be nuts. They'll have tons and tons of ears on. There's tons of fertility there, tons of sunlight there, tons of moisture there. that plant's going to express everything it possibly can. It's going to put a maximum number of ears on that it possibly can. But I don't want that across my field. That's not a good thing. That means that you did not plant enough corn per acre for your hybrid to do really well. So like I said, it means that they did not plant enough seeds per acre. Think about it this way. As a farmer, we spend a tremendous amount of money on seed every single year. Okay, so an average cornfield in ag country is going to get planted at 30,000 seeds per acre, right? A bag of seeds, $300 to $400 a bag. So significant cost here going up. So if we could plant a corn that had 5 ears, we could plant 6,000 seeds per acre and still make the yield that the 30,000 could. Why would every farmer in America not be doing that? Because it doesn't work that way. You're never going to get the yield from those 6,000 that you're going to with that 30,000. So, but in all reality, to me, yield means very, very little. I'm not saying that I don't think about it some when I'm picking a seed to plant as a food plot, but it is 100% not even close to the top of the list when I'm looking for a variety to plant. So what are the things that I'm looking for in a corn that I'm trying to pick? And that's very easy. I'm looking for deer to eat it like it's candy. That's what I'm looking for. I'm wanting maximum pull to that plot. You can have a field full of the most nutrient dense, high quality food that has ever been grown anywhere in the United States, but if the deer won't eat it, it doesn't make a good plot. So the first thing that I want is maximum pulling power. That's the first thing that I'm looking for, and that's something that we can't test yet. Nobody can test that yet because hunting season is not here yet. That's a test that's going to have to be ran somewhere between October, January, and February, not in July, June, or August. The second thing that I'm looking for in a corn seed is the total digestible nutrients. And this really goes back to the same thing that we just talked about with palatability. If there is, you could have the very best nutrient dense, high quality food source that's ever been produced. But if whitetails don't digest it great, then it's not a good food source, right? Because maybe digestibility is extremely low, meaning that even though this food is packed with nutrients, they can't digest it. So TDN is also very important in that pick, but those are just a couple of things that I believe are much more important than actual yield. And one more quick note to mention before we move on about this whole trial is anybody talking about yield in June, July, and August has no idea what they're talking about. And I'm just trying to put that mildly because 3 weeks ago, we had 200 bushel corn here, no question about it. If you would have went out and pulled your samples, your average around, your average long, and divide that by how heavy it is, I guarantee you would have came up with all kinds of 200 bushel corn in my area. Now with 21 days plus, no rain, significant heat, I guarantee you that there are many spots in my county that have lost 50 bushel per acre because as that corn is trying to finish up, if moisture and heat become an issue, the kernels start to abort. And so you see that when you shuck an ear back and you look at the very end of it, if it's not filled out to the end, it likely was a combination of heat and drought stress that did not have enough moisture to fill that ear all the way out. So just because you shucked a ear of corn back in July and it looked like a giant does not mean that's what you're going to get this fall. So there's a lot of time left for things to go backwards in a hurry when conditions are not right. So yield checks cannot be done before physiological maturity. That is black layer. What you do is you pull a kernel, and at the very end of the kernel, you can kind of take a pocket knife or your fingernail and dig down in there, and you'll see a little black spot. That is black layer. Corn is completely done. At that point, it is just drying down. But any yield checks before that are completely null and void and completely useless. It has nothing to do with anything right now. So nobody should be talking yield on any food plots right now. It can change in a heartbeat for all of us. So I hope you noticed that I did not mention any names or companies today. And that's because I'm not going to try to run somebody else down trying to make a sale. I was specifically did not mention any names, any companies, anything like that. I'm just trying to educate folks on what are some of the things that we should be looking for when we're looking for a food plot seed. Also, don't misunderstand me. If my corn comes back this fall and it has high protein, it has higher total digestible nutrients, I'm going to tell that, but I'm not going to trash the competitor and say that theirs is complete junk and try to make an enemy out of somebody that I've never met just to try to make a sale. So I think that's very important to mention. In my opinion, the food plot industry needs more competition. If my product is not as good as somebody else's, then I will go back to the drawing board. I'll work harder and try to make that seed better. Until I get it better, I'm not going to sell as much. And so what that does, that friendly competition between competitors drives better products. And so I think the food plotters win in that whole deal is you have multiple companies that are fighting for business and are constantly trying to do better. That's nothing but good things. As long as it's all friendly and nobody's throwing punches, it's a great thing. The reason that I ran these food plot trials is to not bash any company. The reason that I ran these food plot trials is to see what deer eat, when they eat it, and what do we need to plant on our farms to keep deer living there longer. That's pure and simple, and that's all it is. That was the main goal of the mega food plot trials and still is to this day. Let's get to our questions. Question number 1. Last year, while trying to get my fall food plots established, we had army worms come through and completely wipe them out. Have you ever dealt with them? And if so, how do you fix the problem? Yes, I've dealt with army worms multiple times. They can be a major, major issue, especially for fall planted plots and some of our summer plots as well. I think the best thing to kind of remedy army worms is to have multiple plantings. So you have spring, you have some in the late summer, you have some in the early fall, some in the late fall. And I realize not everybody's got ground to be able to do that on, but that is the best remedy for army worms, because oftentimes when these things move in, they don't give you a heads up, and it doesn't take them long to wipe out your field. Literally in a matter of a day or two, will have your field completely gone, and you'll be like, what the heck happened to my soybeans? That's is unbelievable. I never seen anything like this before. And they will come through one night and just absolutely wipe out a huge ag field in a night. So if you've never seen them, I hope you don't ever see them, but they are a real problem, especially down further south. And they generally start working their way up north as fall approaches. You can spray them, but oftentimes you don't have enough heads up to do that. They're army worms because it looks like a little dang army coming. They're just piles and piles and piles and piles of them. And you can see them crossing the road. It literally colors out the road. So, it's so many of them, and they can do so much damage so quickly. It's very, very, very difficult to spray and to stay ahead of them. The best way to keep ahead of them is to plant something in the spring. So like right now, I've got corn that is nearly made. I've got sunflowers that are made. I've got 2 food sources already. So maybe they come through right now, they get my cowpeas and my lab, my soybeans. Then I plant brassicas here in the next couple of weeks, and then I plant cereal grains in 2 or 3 weeks after that. So we have multiple food sources during that time of the year. We spread that risk out. If we plant everything in fall plots and we go in there and plant everything in beast mode or everything in max bulb brassica and annual clovers, then you are not spreading your risk out at all. If army worms hit you, they're likely going to hit every single plot you have, and you're not going to have anything left, and then you're forced to do nothing but overseed with overdrive. But good question. Question number 2, I really enjoyed the podcast and the YouTube channel. My question is, if you only had a small 1/2 to 3/4 acre field to plant in fall food plots, what would you plant? I would likely go with beast mode just because it has so many products that are high palatability to whitetails. So it's got oats, cereal rye, winter wheat, turnips, radishes, and 2 different kinds of annual clovers. It really covers a large time period for those whitetails. There's something in there providing for those whitetails throughout the majority of the fall, the winter, and the spring. So I would probably go with beast mode, and then I would also have some overdrive sitting there waiting. Any spots that got browsed a little harder, because you are talking a pretty small plot here, half acre to 3/4 acre, especially if you're in high deer density areas, I would have some overdrive ready to fill in. Say in maybe mid-October, I would go ahead and put some overdrive and fill in any spots that were not good and thick. Question number 3, good YouTube videos. I really enjoy the content. My question is in regards to amending the soil for phosphorus deficiencies. I've heard that pea can bind up in the soil for a while and that you have to disc the fertilizer into the soil for pea to eventually take hold. If I focus my plots for fall timing, would it be best that I put P and K down in the spring? Would it be best that I put P and K down in the spring versus the fall due to the timing of the P? Also, I limit my diskings to once a year during fall planting. So how would I effectively put P into the soil if I'm not disking in the spring? This dude swings for the fences right here. He's got a great question, but it's a hard to answer question at the same time. A common misconception by food plotters is they think that because these nutrients don't move as readily available as like nitrogen, that makes them completely immobile in the soil, and it's not the case. They do move throughout the soil profile, they just move at a very slow rate. If they didn't move at all, and you think about a no-till farmer, which the vast majority of farms in the United States right now are no-till, how would you ever get any pea down to the plants if you're 100% no-till? And so it does move through the soil profile. It just moves at a much slower rate. But what I would encourage folks to do is to put enough P and K to get these levels in the high range for the first couple of years, and then just put a maintenance dose after that. A maintenance dose is just the amount that it's going to use to produce that year's food plots. So ideally, the first fall, when you are trying to build that soil up, you would take your soil sample in the spring, and then that fall when you went in there, and you would add a significant amount of P and K to the soil, work that soil with your fall food plot system, plant, and you're going to move a lot of that P and K immediately down to the root zone. And then from then on, I would just go strictly no-till and not have to till anything back up anymore at all, because at that point you've got a high level down in the root zone, and then if a maintenance dose every year, and it will just eventually keep moving down through the soil profile. That's a great question, but one that's kind of difficult to answer for sure. So thank you so much for listening to the Whitetails and Agronomy podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, y'all do as much good as you can for as long as you can for as many people as you can. God bless y'all.